Angular, React, Vue. These are the three frameworks that you hear everywhere. Why? Because they are single page applications. Every job, every company, every startup wants to put their hands into these frameworks. Everyone wants to make their next website, their next blog in one of these frameworks because they are single page application and there's so many advantages to it. But there are many disadvantages that we'll cover in this video that no one ever tells you about them. Single page applications have revolutionized the web industry. Every new application we see is either made in Angular, React, or Vue, or some similar framework. I know what you must be thinking. You must be thinking that this person is out of his mind. He thinks that he can actually second guess the whole industry. He thinks he can second guess all the companies in the world. He thinks he can second guess all the web developers who are constantly learning Angular, React, and Vue and pushing out websites each and every day by the hour. And he's here to second guess them. Well, he must be out of his mind. Let's close this video. Let's go out and do some work. But wait, I'm serious. Let's see disadvantage number 1, bundle splitting. Let's say you have a React application. And as the application grows, you download the whole application whenever your application starts. Now what happens is, let's say you have 50 pages in the application and the user goes to the About section of a website, which is pretty light in terms of the heavy website, the charts, the fonts, the images, the frameworks, the libraries, everything you use. Maybe About page, just have a few paragraphs and maybe 1 or 2 images and that's it. But to load that About page, you actually load the whole website. You actually load tons of data that the user might never see. So that's the first disadvantage. But before you roll over your eyes and go away, wait, I know, we don't need to download the full application. I know we can split the bundles. It's called lazy loading, modularization, etc. In different frameworks, it has different names. But I know that we can actually download just the About page. And then if you go to another page, there are various loading techniques that we can use. We can lazy load all the pages or all the modules when the user is idle. We can load the module or the page when the user visits them. I know there are various techniques and we are not going to get into detail of them because it's not a video of that. It will need another video of its own. But even after lazy loading, there's one big problem which is usually overlooked by many developers. And that is, even to load the About page, even if your application is fully lazy loaded, you still have to download the index.html, which can be called main.js in some other frameworks. Well, that is really the heaviest file, the heaviest module of your whole application. So that is the main page, the main module that you have to load, even if you want to load just an About page, which might not be the most efficient thing in the world because you now are loading a whole lot of information which the About page of your website doesn't really need. And that is disadvantage number 1. Disadvantage number 2. Let's say you have lazy loading, everything is working perfectly fine, but still we have another problem. It's pretty much related to the last one, but it has a whole different set of problems and we'll see what they are. Let's say you have a user session that is open for at least a week or 2. Now, if you don't have a session timeout or something like that, if your website is not that data-centric or authentication is not a high requirement in your website, you might never expire a session, or you may expire a session in 10 or 15 days, but in 1 week, maybe not. Well, in that case, because you lazy loaded, you loaded the About page and your website loaded pretty quickly, but now in the background, you also loaded the home page, the dashboard, the settings, etc. What happens now is that whenever a user goes to the home page, because your application was downloaded 1 week back, what happens is that the user still goes to the home page and sees the old home page. And in these 7 days, maybe your website was actually updated. Maybe your version is now from 1.x to 1. Let's say x plus 1. So 1.2 to 1.3 for those who didn't understand. Sorry for that. In that case, your user, although he opened the website 1 week later, he's actually seeing a 7 days old code. He's actually seeing a 7 days old UI. And wait, the problem doesn't end there. What if on user's interaction, the API call that you have to make have now changed because you made changes in the Node.js or Java backend, whatever you have, and let's say the API call changed. Now it's really frustrating for the user because let's say he's on his settings page and he updates his email. According to the website, according to the form, according to your front-end code, which was 7 days old, you are going to a route in the backend with an API call. But because the route has changed, but the Angular or the React website hasn't, at least the one that's downloaded in his or her laptop of your client, you will still send your request to the old API, and the client will not just understand what the hell happened, because definitely your API request is going to fail. And well, that's the big problem. And you know what's the solution? If Angular React was not used, this problem would never occur. If we go from, let's say, the about page to home page, even 7 days later, you will have to get the whole HTML file from the backend, maybe which is hosted in Java or Node.js, it doesn't matter, but at least the user will never see stale content. The user will never go to a page that was 7 days old. User will never face an incorrect or bad API call because you were too lazy to update your front end. You wanted to use Angular React, and now you are in a big problem and you don't know what to do. I know, don't get all angry on me. I know you can still work around this problem. I know you can check the version of your application, and you can keep on checking your version every 5, 10, 15, or maybe 1 minute. And what will happen is that after every interval of time, you will check if the version I have downloaded in the browser updated, and we even use something like that in the company I work for. But again, that has some pitfalls that you must know about. That is, if the website you have loaded has changed the version and you ask the user to say that I'm going to update your website now in, let's say, 30 seconds or 1 minute. Well, in 2020, and we are in December, so I'll say in 2021, this is not really the best user experience. Let's say user is a form, he's filling a huge form, it takes about 4 or 5 minutes to fill that, and within the time period, you say that in 15 seconds, the website is going to refresh and everything you're doing will be lost. Well, the user will never come back to your website because you have many competitors, and this is a bad approach. And if you don't even warn the user that in 15 seconds the website is going to refresh and just refreshes like that, well, that's the worst user experience that you can give to your client. Another pitfall of using frameworks like Angular, React, or Vue is that you haven't hit the like button yet. Well, if you haven't done that already, please do that right now. If you learn anything new, if you think this kind of topic is interesting, or you simply like the new background lights we have, the blue one, well, hit the like button for us. We are really investing our time, energy, and money into this channel. So if you find anything interesting, let us know in the comments and hit the like button. The next pitfall I want to discuss to you about is server-side rendering. You know, people will say that, Pranav, all the problems that you just described are really worthless because we can have server-side rendering where we'll just upload the first page from the server, so it will be good in search engine optimization, it will be good in load time, everything will be perfect. Whatever you're saying is full of EEP, and we don't really have those problems in the real world. Well, wait a minute. According to a report published this year in March, well, it says that more than 50% of the websites which are single-page applications, they don't take advantage of server-side rendering. And you already know that those 50% websites load a hell lot of data before loading the first page when they don't need it. Well, even the ones that do use server-side rendering are not free of problems. There are many other disadvantages. For example, number 1, the first page that you have initially rendered from your server is actually dead for a long time, and this is where the concept of time to interactive metric comes from. Well, it means that even though your home page is loaded with a sign up button, everything worked perfectly fast. Well, if the user clicks on the sign up button, nothing will happen if your Angular or React or Vue framework is still downloading in the browser. Now here's the big compromise. You will keep on hoping that your Angular or React framework will download the initial bundle before the user clicks on the sign up button. And being a developer in 2021, you don't really want to be dependent on luck, especially if it's a problem in your code. And don't even get me started in the authentication. When you load the first page from the server, authentication, keeping session IDs, keeping refresh tokens, it's a whole another mess, and I don't really want to get into that. But if you are working with any of these frameworks, you know it already. But it's very important that you don't view this video as an anti-React or anti-Angular. I think that these frameworks have a place for themselves. I think these frameworks are great. My job, my life, my earnings, at least till 2021, depends on these frameworks to earn. And these frameworks are really great in terms of some applications. But I think we should not just blindly follow what's trending right now, and we should not just blindly make another website with React or Angular before knowing the advantages or disadvantages. There are various other libraries like Alpine, jQuery, sometimes websites with simple PHP or WordPress. Well, these things actually might be really great if your website is just a blog or just a static website, because in that case, if your user is going to visit only one page of your blog, you don't really need to download everything. It's an overkill. Wikipedia, as an example, is made in PHP. I'm sure you don't think Wikipedia is slow. Even Craigslist is made with Perl. I'm sure you don't think that is slow as well. It just depends on different kind of website. It just depends on what kind of website you're trying to make, what is the use case, what are the features you want to have. Are your websites going to be really user interactive? Will you have a lot of events that will load when the user clicks on something? Will you have a lot of data that you need to fetch in order to show maybe pagination in a page or something like that? Maybe for large corporations, this does make sense, because they want to have a completely different front-end team. They want the back-end to have generic API calls, which can be used by different front-end frameworks, different front-end websites, and without changing anything in the back-end. So big corporations might prefer to have an Angular team, a React team, a Vue team, and all their responsibility entails is to use the APIs to make a highly interactive website and to use the reusable API, maybe REST API, GraphQL, etc., whatever it may be, but to just create websites that can be interacted by the user, who have paginations and multiple complex things. But if you are just going to create a newsletter or a blog, I don't think React or Angular is the perfect choice. In the world we live in today, it might be very difficult to go against this norm of using single-page applications, and maybe people just force you to learn them. I mean, not physically force you, but let's say you are a new developer who is trying to learn, who already knows JavaScript, but now you're thinking of what framework should you use. Well, 9 out of 10 people, or maybe 99 out of 100 people, will actually tell you to go for Angular or React. Reason being that 99% of the front-end jobs or full-stack jobs require one of these two frameworks, if not both of them. Well, if you're a developer, if you are in the 21st century, you really want to be using the latest thing, you really want to go through the buzzwords. I know, and even for companies, now it's getting very difficult to find quality PHP developers, Perl developers, Ruby on Rails, etc. All those frameworks have a place for themselves. Do you think if Wikipedia was made in 2020, it would be a single-page application or a traditional PHP or Ruby application? I want to know your opinions. Also, if you have learned anything new from this video, if you like this kind of content, hit the like button, show some support, hit the subscribe button when you are at it, and until next time.